guys, and welcome back to my channel. I know we are filming in a different location today. We are filming at the library where I work. My house has just been insanity lately, and it's been so hard to film there because my 2-year-old is stopping taking his naps, and so it's been hard to film there. So I decided to come into work early and film a couple videos here before I actually start work. So I'm the only one in the library, so we are here. We are going to film. I mean, I figured it's still a good backdrop, books, still works with my whole aesthetic. So what I wanted to talk to you guys today about is the best thrillers that I read last year. So I had such a hard time narrowing down this list. It was very, very difficult because I read a lot of thrillers last year, and a lot of them I really loved. And you guys are gonna see, like, I'm gonna be having a couple more videos come out. Like, I'm gonna be having like best young adult books that I read, best historical fiction that I read, best horror, like, and so there were some books that I ended up like shuffling into different categories because I wanted them to make it on one of the best of lists. But I usually only do 5 for these lists, right? So it was just so hard to like pinpoint them all into like what categories they should be in. But yeah, so today we are going to be talking about the best thrillers that I read this year. So that we're going to talk about is Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. And this one is a hugely widely popular book. It's been read by hundreds of thousands of people, and it's been made into a movie. So there's that. So usually I like to read things that are a little bit less popular because I really like showing you guys, like sharing different authors with you guys and giving you guys suggestions of books that maybe you haven't heard of before. So I typically try not to read too many really popular books because so many reviewers on BookTube are doing that, and you guys, lots of you tell me that you love that I suggest different books that you probably haven't heard of before. So this one is definitely a popular one, but the premise of this is so cool. And it's just such a really good idea for a story. So basically we have a person who has had a horrific accident, and because of such, she's developed a really rare form of amnesia where every time she wakes up from going to sleep, she can't remember anything on her life, like past a certain point. So she can remember things from like when she was a child, but like from her 20s and up, she has no idea. And so every single morning she wakes up and she doesn't know. She thinks she's like in her 20s, and so she goes and gets up, and all of a sudden she's like in a strange place. She doesn't know this house that she's in, and sometimes she's beside a man and she doesn't know who he is. In reality, it's her husband. She goes into the bathroom, looks in the mirror, and she's aged like 20 years. She doesn't remember the last 20 years of her life. She thinks she's still in her 20s. So it's a very, very strange sort of situation. And she ends up finding this book that she writes in every day. What ends up happening is she ends up getting like in contact with a therapist who kind of is helping her. He thinks that he can kind of help her, and she starts writing in this book every single day. And in doing this, she's kind of discovered every morning she wakes it up and she wakes up and she reads what she has written the days before. And in doing this, she's starting to discover some discrepancies in what her husband is telling her, and she starts to kind of have some ideas that maybe nothing is quite as it seems here in this relationship. And so she starts to have, you know, questions about her husband and about what really happened to her in this accident that she had. So it's definitely more of a slow burn thriller. Like kind of the more action happens towards the end, but it's definitely really, really interesting following her journey to discover who she, like, what's really happened to her. And the thing that's really cool about it is I kind of thought from the beginning, I kind of thought, okay, this is like, how is this going to be a good book? Because it's going to be really hard to write, you know, this character every single morning waking up not knowing who she is. And it's only going to take so long before the reader becomes kind of annoyed because she has to tell herself these same things over and over every single day. And, you know, we are aware of all that stuff, but she has to re-educate herself every day. So I was kind of skeptical going into it, wondering how the author was going to actually do justice to this idea, but she did a really good job. She made it so that it wasn't annoying and it wasn't like repetitive like I thought it would be. So I really enjoyed this one and I definitely recommend it. Next book that we are going to talk about is The Safe Place by Anna Downs. And this one was a really good thriller as well. So basically we follow our main character, I believe her name was Emily. And she's just kind of going through a transitional period in her life. She's just like kind of off the rails. She doesn't really have much going for her. She's living paycheck to paycheck. She's working at a temp agency and she's just kind of like flouncing along. She wants to be an actress and she's just hoping for her big break, and it's just never seems to be coming. And one day she ends up getting fired from this job that she's been placed in through this temp agency, and she's like devastated. She doesn't know what she's gonna do now. Her rent check is gonna bounce and she's just like, you know, distraught. And at the same time, we are following the perspective of a man named Scott, who's actually her employer. So he is the head of this corporation. She doesn't work directly under him, but he's like the CEO of this corporation. And we're following him as he has kind of become oddly interested in her, not necessarily like in a romantic way. We're not too sure. Like, it kind of seems like it could be, but maybe not. We're not too sure why he's so interested in her. And what we have come to find out is that he has kind of orchestrated this this event for her to end up without a job so that he can offer her a different job. So he ends up offering her this job as basically, for lack of a better term, basically as a personal assistant to his wife, who lives in the French Riviera. So he has this estate in the French Riviera where his wife and his daughter spend most of their time. And I believe that they are in London and he just kind of travels back and forth. So she accepts this job and she goes off to live at this estate with his wife. And it's very, very secluded. Like, they are oddly secluded and oddly secretive. And it's just a very almost lonely, isolated place. And she becomes very close with Scott's wife pretty quickly, but soon she starts to notice something a little bit strange about the situation, and in particular about their daughter. So she kind of starts to have some wonderings about this situation, wonderings about the daughter. It's kind of an odd situation. The daughter is she's allergic to the sun, basically, and so anytime she goes outside, she has to have like 17 layers of sunscreen on and be dressed to the nines and like covered all up. And she also cannot speak. And it's not clear why she can't speak, but there's something with her that she can't speak. And so Emily starts to kind of wonder about the situation, and there's just a few things that happen throughout the book that make her maybe think something is going on. And so she ends up going to do some research on this and figures there's something weird going on here. And so the thrilling part comes in once she kind of starts to question things, which I cannot tell because that will definitely ruin it. It's an easy one to spoil. But yeah, it's really well done. I really enjoyed it. Once again, it's kind of a different, I like books that have like a different premise, right? Like something that haven't read 15,000 times. Like, it's a cool idea that you haven't really heard of before. Next, we're going to talk about The Reunion by Guillaume Musso. And this one is one that I really enjoyed as well. I keep saying that for all of them, but I really did enjoy all of them. And this one, basically, we have a high school reunion that is going to be taking place. And there is a cast of characters that ends up feeling like they have to go because there is a body hidden in the gymnasium walls that's going to be destroyed soon, and they are the ones that put it there. Okay, so that's kind of what it starts off with. Basically, they're having this sort of reunion, and one of the gymnasiums in this school is going to be torn down, and you know, it's kind of like a say goodbye to the to the way the school was, sort of thing, and celebrate that they're going to be building a new portion of the school. And so this cast of characters comes back because they have put this body in the walls, and now they're realizing that they're going to get caught. There's definitely like identifying markers to lead any investigation towards them, so they know that they're going to be caught when this happens. And so they're just coming back to kind of like meet together and figure out what the heck they're gonna do. So there's that. Like, that's the first sort of mystery that's going on in this book. But then there's also another mystery, strange, odd thing that's happened, and that is that back when they were in high school, there was a girl who supposedly ran off with one of the teachers at this school, and they have been missing ever since. Like, no one's ever heard from them or anything like that. They have just been found to be in a in an inappropriate relationship. They ran off together and they've never been seen since. So there is kind of like this legend of this missing couple. And so there's that. And we follow that story, and then we also follow this other story. And you immediately, as the reader, like, we know that this cast of characters are murderers and they killed somebody and somebody's in the walls, but we don't know who it is or why these people killed that person. And the kind of two mysteries, like, we're following them both and they kind of come together, and it's just like, it's really well done. I really enjoyed it. So next to last is The Woman on the Edge by Samantha M. Bailey, and this one is actually a debut novel that I really enjoyed. It was a really fast-paced thriller that I could not put down, and it starts off basically by our main character being on the subway. She's about to get on the subway, and a woman that she doesn't know, who looks like she's really having a hard time, just kind of pushes her baby into this woman's arms and says, "Take care of my baby," and calls her by name. So this woman knows her, but she doesn't know her, and she's being handed this baby. She's holding this baby, and this mother steps in front of an oncoming train. So there's several things that start to go on with this. Number one is that there is CCTV footage of this incident happening, but because of the way, the angles of it, and also how many people there were, it really looks incriminating, and it looks as if, I can't remember the main character's name for the life of me for right now, and I don't have the book here with me, so I apologize, but it looks as if, so I'm just gonna keep saying our main character. It looks as if our main character actually pushed this woman onto the tracks and stole her baby. So she kind of has to go on this, she's feeling like she's kind of put into a corner where the police don't believe her, and she's being treated as a suspect at the moment. So she's kind of going on her own journey to try to figure out what happened, where she knows this woman from, because she doesn't recall her, but obviously this woman knows her. Morgan, that's her name, Morgan. So obviously this woman knows Morgan, and, you know, because she said, "Morgan, take care of my baby," you know. So she has to try to figure out where she knows her from and what is going on, like what has happened in this woman's life, and why did she want her to take care of her baby. So she kind of gets drawn into some really sketchy situations, and she meets like unlikely allies in this book and tries to figure out what's happening. And we are just like, as a reader, we're like, what is happening? Like, why did this woman do this? So yeah, very interesting story. Really enjoyed it. And the last book, I know you guys are not going to be surprised by this at all because I've talked about it so much, and it was runner-up for the best book of the year that I read, and that is Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. And this one, I guess technically, it's kind of hit or miss whether it really even is a thriller. It's classified as a thriller, but I don't know how, I mean, yeah, it's thrilling. It's thrilling, but it basically follows a young boy named Christopher, who is, I believe, 8 or 10. I can't remember, 8 or 10. And he's just kind of like the average kid, right? He and his mother have started, they've moved because she was trying to get away from an abusive relationship. So that's the first thing, that they've moved to this new town. And he's just kind of struggling, right? He has a couple of really good friends in school, but he's definitely struggling in school. He has dyslexia. He's a hard time reading. He's a hard time following and keeping up. And he's just struggling a lot. And one day he ends up going missing after school. And nobody knows where he is. He's gone for an entire week. And then one day he just kind of walks out of the woods as though nothing has happened. Now, there's these particular woods in this town that people are trying to, you know, like these kids are always playing in, and their parents are always saying like, stay out of those woods and whatever. And but once he comes back out of these woods, he's changed. Like, he's almost a completely different kid. He's all of a sudden like master in school, getting like hundreds, and he is having no issues in school whatsoever anymore. And he's just changed a lot in a lot of different ways. And we start to find out about an imaginary friend that he spent time with while he was missing in this forest. And so we are not sure as the reader if this is like some sort of paranormal situation that's going on, or if it's like some creepy guy that he met that, like, you know, abused him or something like that. We're not sure exactly what has happened, but we kind of end up finding out through a series of events. To just say that. But yeah, this one was really, really good. I say this all the time whenever I talk about this book, but this book really reminded me of the 80s. I don't believe it was actually supposed to be set in the 80s, but the way that I read it, I did read it as though it was set in the 80s, and I really enjoyed it for that fact. 80s imagery in my head for some reason whenever I was reading this book, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it, even though I think it's actually set in modern day times. And that was just like my brain reading it that way. But anyways, you guys, those are the top 5 thrillers that I read in 2022. Let me know in the comments down below if you read any of them and what your thoughts were. And thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.